All right, everybody, we're going live. Hey, everybody, I'm Tara Baklund. And with me.
Hi, I'm Alberto Carbo.
This is our first Herbs in Spanglish, and we're going to cover the herb Plantago SPP today. So it's an herb that's all around the world. You've probably seen it. Es por todos los lados, el Plantago. ¿Cómo se dice Plantago en español? Varias veces, maneras de decir Plantago en español.
Sí, muchas formas. Bienvenidos a todos. Hay muchas formas, igual que en inglés. Same as in English, there's many names. Los nombres muchas veces indican el uso, or they indicate the use of the herb. So it's quite interesting because you get a lot of info just from the name.
Exactly. Exactamente. I'm going to get a picture up here so you all can see a picture, una foto de Plantago, because it is all over the world, and you can recognize it. A lo mejor es en tu, what is backyard? How do you say backyard?
Patio trasero.
Perfect. Let's see. Here's a great picture, so you know what we're talking about here. Plantago. We have here in the United States and North America, there are many nicknames, and herbs oftentimes have nicknames. So las hierbas tienen sus nombres, apellidos, son apellidos, ¿sí?
Apodos.
Apodos, okay, are nicknames, and they often indicate what their uses are. Entonces indican los usos, cómo son usados. And you can correct me, Alberto. It's been years since I've spoken.
No, it's great. Your Spanish is amazing.
So there's various types, and in English, one of the nicknames is white man's footprint, because apparently the story is that as a white man came to North America, the footsteps were indicating his path, something like that. La historia es que cuando los hombres blancos, es simplemente así, vinieron, ¿cómo es?
Vinieron, sí.
Vinieron aquí. A veces las palabras en mi cabeza son correctas, pero cuando yo digo la palabra, el sonido es muy diferente. So sometimes the words sound funnier when they're coming out. Entonces, cuando el hombre blancos o vinieron aquí, el Plantago también en inglés es llamado, how would you say that, white man's footstep?
Paso de hombre blanco.
Simplemente así. So it's very simple. And diciendo la historia es que de los pasos del hombre blanco es cuando pasaron por los Américas, representó sus pasos, más o menos así. And so, go ahead.
No, es interesante porque el tema de los pies, or the feet, es muy característico de el Plantago. Entonces, so one of its names, uno de sus nombres es white man's footsteps. Pero si miramos, if we look at the Latin name, el nombre latín Plantago, en español, Plantago o planta, claro, plant, planta, y the sole of the foot is known as the planta del pie. And there are uses for putting plantain on your feet. Muchas veces se pone el Plantago en los pies como uso terapéutico.
Y como la palabra, like the word is integrated in so many ways, es integrado en varios veces, como tenemos una condición, es plantar fasciitis, right? Debe ser similar en español, imagino. Plantar fasciitis, que es una condición del pie. And so you have the same words, you have the same root words, planter, Plantago, and so you can see it in so many ways. Let's see, and we have pictures here from all over the world, so you can see it's literally found in all over the world. Yeah. So I saw on your list you had many names that it's called in Spanish as well, not just the Latin name, correct?
Yeah. And yeah, I was just looking up plantar fasciitis because I wasn't familiar with that term in Spanish. En español se dice fascitis plantar. So very similar. Sí, y en español hay muchos nombres para el plantago, al igual que en inglés. So same as in English, there's tons of names. Los más populares, or the more popular ones, are Plantago, or Llanten is a popular one, or just with double L at the beginning, Llanten, or just with one L, Llanten. Some of the more characteristic names, o los nombres más característicos, representativos e interesantes, and interesting ones are orejas de burro is one name. So, you know,
donkey's ears.
Donkey's ears, yeah. So, which is it's a funny one.
It's kind of cute too. You can see how here, like in this one, you could see, because sometimes there are certain varieties that get really, really big, and some are just tiny, and it also depends on the growing stage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Pero like that makes me think of one of its uses. Uno de los usos del plantago es para infección de orejas. Entonces, burro de oreja, oreja de burro, como que trae atención a las orejas, or brings attention to one of its uses. Otro nombre interesante es gitanilla, which makes me think of gitano or gypsy. And of course, gypsies, gitanos, are known for traveling, viajeros, they viajan por todos lados. Entonces, como un nombre parecido, or a similar name to White Man's Footsteps, but with a different type of people who also traveled over many places, maybe spreading the plant around as they walked along the path.
It's really interesting because even the white man's footprint is, from what I understand, more correlated to a certain type of plantain here. So el plantago que es más, es blanco porque tenemos otra variedad que es más lila, rojo, sí es más rojo. Pero eso es no es el white man's footprint.
Sí, ese creo que es el plantago rugacia, o rugaceae, o rugeli, eso.
Y otros nombres parece que tienen gran variedad en español de nombres.
Sí, en español también hay hierba de las 7 costillas. Entonces, costilla es rib, so herb of the 7 ribs. Y no estoy seguro, actually, de pronto puedes poner la foto otra vez porque nunca he contado, I've never counted how many ribs are in the plantain leaf, but if there's 7, that would make sense.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think there are 7. I think this one has 7. Let's see. ¿Cómo se dice ribs?
Costilla.
Costillas, sí, sí.
Y es interesante porque en inglés, en English, hay un nombre para plantago o plantain es ribwort.
Yeah. This one in Germany has 9, so maybe they have a few more ribs in Germany. And on 9. Costillas.
9. Chévere. Y hierba de las 7 venas. Entonces, vena is vein, so the 7 veins. similar name, different word, I guess. Other interesting names, oreja de liebre. So again, oreja is ear. So, and liebre is hair. So like HARE. So like the animal. So it's interesting because again, otra vez, las orejas indica or indicates a bit of the use, el uso de la planta.
Yeah, there are certain ones that look, here's ribwort, exactly. And there are some that are longer. I wonder if we have a picture here, have more of a longer leaf than a wider leaf. Son más...
Ese es Plantago lanceolata. Or a narrow leaf plantain.
Yeah, I thought I saw a picture somewhere. Well, you keep... Voy a...
Buscar. Otro nombre, y uno chistoso, a funny name, que la verdad no encuentro sentido. I don't find any reason to this name, but maybe there is rabos de ratón. So rabos is like butt or backside, and then ratón is mouse. So butt of a mouse or backside of a mouse. Don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to think about that one except to laugh. Me hace reír, pero aparte de eso.
A lo mejor alguien que vive en la ciudad dio este nombre. Someone who lives in the city.
Sí.
This one looks like it has 7. This is one of our presentations from a class at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. It's a wonderful class called the Doctrine of Signatures. And here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, it's the corners. I think the edges have 7. And esta presentación es de unas clases del Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. Trabajamos juntos en el Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism y esta presentación es una muy buena sobre esta hierba, como pueden ver.
Sí, y es la profe o profesora que enseña esta clase se llama Lee Arnoldy y la clase se llama Doctrine of Signatures, que es la doctrina de, actually, no sé cómo decir eso en español, nunca lo he buscado, pero doctrina de...
¿asignaturas? ¿O cómo?
Asignaturas, yo creo que sería la mejor palabra. Sí, pero nunca he buscado ese término en español.
Y esta clase es solamente sobre cuáles son los símbolos en las plantas, de cómo son usados, varias cosas. Es difícil, mismo en inglés, difícil explicar, pero más o menos cuáles son los símbolos en las plantas y cómo ibas a describir Doctrine of Signatures.
Pues yo diría que el Doctrine of Signatures es como las observaciones que demuestran alguna similitud entre la planta o el ambiente donde crece y la parte del cuerpo a la cual la planta ayuda o la enfermedad o condición que ayuda a sanar. Entonces es como el reflejo de la naturaleza o el patrón que se refleja en la planta y en la persona.
That was an excellent explanation, because even in English, it can be super hard to explain what the Doctrine of Signatures is about. And it's basically the plant. Where does it grow? What are its shapes, colors, and so forth that maybe look similar? They could even taste similar. There might be plants actually make sounds. And so how does that how is that similar to certain parts of the body or ailments that a person might be experiencing? And it often can indicate, as a very old traditional way, if you've ever wondered, man, how did people in the old times figure out how these herbs were used? This is one of the key ways, and it's pretty fascinating.
Estaba buscando y se dice Doctrina de Signaturas.
En español. Okay, so it's the same thing in Spanish, which we were wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting.
So there's a plenitude of names, I think, in various languages. Those of you who are watching this, go ahead and type in a name in the comments of a name that you know Plantain by. I mean, it was interesting. You can go to many places throughout the world. Entonces, si sabes un nombre diferente de que lo dijo Alberto o yo, pongan en los comentarios el nombre que tú sabes es Plantago or Plantain. We would love to hear from you and the names that you know Plantain by. Were there any others that were especially intriguing or funny?
Yeah. Lengua de carnero. So carnero is like a ram, un male sheep, una oveja macho. Entonces, lengua de carnero o lengua de oveja. Oveja es sheep. Y uno de los usos para el plantago también tiene que ver con la lengua y la boca. Entonces, interesante que el nombre, or the name alludes, el nombre sugiere cuál es el uso de la planta. Entonces, Llanten de hoja ancha es el plantago mayor. El plantago lanceolata with the thin, narrow leaves es Llanten menor o Llanten lanceolado. Y es interesante, si miras otra vez el significado latín o el nombre latín, the Latin name for Plantago lanceolata or the narrow leaf plantain, lanceolata is como lanza, lance, so, spear shaped, more elongated, más largo, more puntudo, pointy. Y otros nombres, hay tantos.
There are so many, and each one of them just like seem to have its own story. Es como cada nombre tiene su propia historia.
Total. Y también important to note, un primo or a cousin of Plantago is Plantago ovata or psyllium. Psyllium is más popularmente conocido, or more popularly known as Metamucil. Para cualquier persona que alguna vez ha estado constipada, for anyone who's ever been constipated, probablemente usaron Metamucil at some point. Mi abuela usaba mucho Metamucil, me acuerdo de eso. Entonces, la planta que se hace en Metamucil y es un remedio para poder ir al baño, it helps you to go to the bathroom, es Plantago ovata, que también se llama Ispagula o Llanten de India, porque es de la India. So, yeah, interesting.
Entonces son las sementes, ¿no son? Que usan por esto.
Las semillas, sí.
Sementes es portugués. Entonces, so it could be a lot of work. Es mucho trabajo de escoger también en español. Las semillas. Entonces, a veces es mejor comprar, pero siempre somos personas que support or encourage.
Apoyamos
que cogen sus propias hierbas. Without chemicals, if they're, in an area where they don't have chemicals, preferably no dog pee or anything like that, but that's not always possible.
You can always wash them a bit.
Yes, that is, if you're in a pinch. So we chose this first herb because it's so useful. It's everywhere. It's so useful in so many ways. Maybe we'll add the list of herbs, or add your names. Sorry, I meant to say names of this herb, because there are so many, and you could just go on a conversation about those. Escogimos esta hierba porque es tan común. Puede usar esta hierba por tantas maneras, por tantas cosas. Entonces, podemos discutir en solamente los nombres por horas, yo imagino.
Total. Sí, y es súper chévere o bueno si la gente contribuye nombres, if people contribute names de su región, porque las hierbas muchas veces tienen nombres diferentes en regiones diferentes. Entonces, in different regions, there's different names. Entonces, so it's very important to and great to find out different names from different regions, and yeah, maybe reasons. If you know why it's called that, even better.
And I know it's frustrating to some people when they're like, what is the Latin name? Or the Latin name has changed for Plantago. There are so many names. Yo sé que frustra muchas personas porque tienen muchos nombres de Plantago también específicas, botánicas. Y es frustrante porque han tantos nombres, ¿sí? Pero es importante porque podemos discutir en español or in inglés. We can talk about it in English or Spanish, and we can say the name in botanical Latin, and we can know exactly which herb we're talking about. Maybe a little bit different accent, but we can understand.
Sí, totalmente. Y eso es un buen momento para decir que quiero mostrarles a todos un recurso de donde pueden buscar los nombres de plantas diferentes. A good resource to check out different names in Spanish and español. Entonces, if you know the name of the plant, the botanical name of the plant, you can look it up on this webpage, and it will tell you different colloquial names for that plant in Spanish, which is great, porque como hay tantos nombres, es importante saber si uno está hablando de la misma planta o no.
Y dijiste que has usado ese recurso varias veces porque eres una herbalista. ¿Es herbalista en español?
Sí, esa es sí, se dice herbalista o herborista. O sí, esas son las dos palabras más usadas. También he escuchado herbolario.
Herbolario. ¿Cuál prefieres?
Creo que me gusta más herborista.
Okay. Entonces, eres herbalista y tienes clientes que hablan el español, y dijo que a veces no sabes o dicen que usan esta hierba, pero como Plantago han tantos nombres diferentes que ese recurso es muy bueno para ti también. So you say you have clients, that you're an herbalist and you have clients who speak just Spanish, or maybe they only know the word in Spanish. And so you've used this resource a number of times to make sure you're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I live in Canada, Ottawa, and I see people in English and Spanish. So hay veces necesito encontrar los nombres de plantas or find the names of plants in Spanish. But making sure it's the right plant. Entonces, acá se llama fitoterapia.net, y esa es otra palabra, or that's another word for in Spanish. It's actually used in English too, but not as much as herbalist or herbalism, but phytotherapy or fitoterapia. Entonces, fito de plantas y terapia de terapia. Phyto from plants, therapy from therapy. So it kind of spells it out, makes it quite obvious what it is, pero fitoterapia.net. Y si vas a un momento. Vas al buscador general, acá en la derecha, puedes buscar, esperen un momento, me perdí.
You're doing a general search here.
Yep, no, I think that's not what I want. Un momento.
Maybe they changed things.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Estaba en la página principal on the main page, and for some reason I couldn't find where to go, pero once you look up a plant, se puede escribir el nombre acá y puedes escoger, you can choose popular name or nombre científico or the botanical name. Entonces, si pones Plantago, te da, por ejemplo, muchas
especies, ¿no son?
Especias, sí, y, o variedades. Entonces puedes, por ejemplo, Plantago ovata, y te dice el nombre en castellano. Castellano es Spanish, español, pero también te da otros nombres como catalán, que es una región de España, a region in Spain, francés, English, Dutch y austriaco.
Have you tried the search in English first? So if you just put it in English, will it do I would imagine it would do the same thing.
I haven't tried.
Primero. Then it could be a resource even for English speakers. Sometimes it is helpful to know it in other languages, or if you're just a word geek, like I like to know those.
Yeah, I looked up plantain and this came up, so
one of the names.
Yeah, this is Plantago lanceolata, and the names are Llanten de hoja estrecha or lanceolado. So estrecha is narrow, or Llanten menor, minor plantain.
Cool. Thank you. It says ribwort plantain in English. So at least it could give you, it could move you in the direction, get you going in the right direction. Very cool. Thank you. We'll put those resources in the show notes. So vamos a poner los recursos en las notas del show. So along with many names, it has many uses. So tantos nombres tienen usos o más. Gracias a Dios.
Sí, eso tiene muchos usos.
So just as many uses as it has their names, and thank God there are many, many uses. You could use this, you could have just this one herb and it would take care of so many things. Like our favorite herbalists say at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, one of them is Phyllis D. Light. And she has a quote that's something like, you don't have to know necessarily 25 herbs. If you know one herb and know how to use it 25 ways, you're doing great. So this is one of those cases. If you have Plantago, and you likely do, although it's winter here, so we have to preserve it, and we can talk about that at some point too. You have a great, what they call a plant ally on in your home. So
yeah, some of the cooler properties or unique properties of plantain, los usos como específicos, is that it is both astringent and emulsant. Entonces, astringente y humectante. And so it has two opposing effects. So it can be helpful for wet conditions or dry conditions. Puede ser útil para condiciones secas o húmedas. Entonces es muy buena para la digestión, for digestion, porque siempre el sistema digestivo está tratando de equilibrar la humedad. Entonces puede ser muy bueno para lesiones y heridas o lesions, injuries en el sistema digestivo, in the digestive tract.
And the body in general is always trying to balance itself out. So it's I think that's probably what makes it such a safe herb in a lot of ways. No tiene mucho riesgo en usar esa hierba. Tiene mucho equilibrio en sí mismo.
Sí, y eso es un muy buen punto. That's a great point, que it's very safe. Es muy segura de usar. Los niños, es muy buena para los niños y se puede usar para los niños con mucha confianza de que pueden tolerarlo. Like you can use it with kids knowing that they're going to tolerate it. It's not by any means adverse in any way. Y es muy... y es una planta que a los niños también les encanta. Por ejemplo, mi hijo es una de las primeras plantas que aprendió y kids, los niños, les encanta aprender sobre el plantago porque es muy útil para picaduras. So it's good for bites. Entonces, de arañas, avispas, abejas, insectos y...
all kinds of insect bites.
Yeah, absolutely. All sorts of insect bites, incluso para animales venenosos. Hay historias de gente que ha usado Plantago or people that have used Plantain when they've been bitten by a venomous animal, por un animal venenoso, y ayuda a sacar el veneno, o astillas o splinters. La saca. Ese es... sí, pero para los niños, cuando les cuentas a un niño, if you tell a kid, hey, you just got bit by or stung by a wasp, like put some plantain on it, they love it. They think it's amazing. El verano pasado estaba con mis cuñados y les mostré, I showed them, my in-laws, I showed them my plantain. Y después yo me fui, I left, y a los 5 minutos, 5 minutes later, my sister-in-law, mi cuñada, la picó una avispa, a wasp stung her. And ella no se acordaba de qué planta era el plantago, se le olvidó. Pero
in 5 minutes she forgot.
Pero su hijo, que tiene 5 años, se acordó. Entonces dijo, mamá, es esta. Y la pusieron encima, y hay varias formas. Puedes morderla varias veces, o puedes machacarla, muddle it a bit, y ponerla en la picadura, y el dolor se fue. Y entonces ella y su hijo, my sister-in-law and her son, will forever remember Plantain.
Con esas historias, las historias cuando escuchan pueden recordar, pero cuando tienen la experiencia, con certeza, en español también, vas a recordar. So your sister-in-law, her 5-year-old son remembered the story just 5 minutes before. Is like, Mom, and then grabs a plant. Did he chew it, or he just kind of?
Yeah, he chewed it.
And then so he can help his mom too.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, so any bites, it's great for that. Spider bites, all sorts of bites. I think you had a story about a spider bite.
Yes, thankfully it wasn't me that was bitten. Gracias a Dios, que no era yo. La historia es de mi marido o esposo en español.
Ambos.
Okay. Mi esposo John tiene una, ¿cómo es? A bite?
Picadura.
Picadura de no solamente una araña, not just any spider, pero una araña reclusa, recluse spider, que es uno de los peores, is one of the worst, right? And so he put plantain on regularly, and I think it was like winter maybe at that point. So we had the tincture. Era invierno en esa época, entonces puso la tintura de plantain y algo más, mis notas. He put on a few other things, but I had to look up the words in Spanish. This is a good lesson for me. He also would rotate. He would put bentonite clay, so he would add some water to bentonite clay, because that also helps to draw out poisons. So plantain and bentonite were doing their work, right? Entonces usó también bentonite clay es arcilla de bentonita, y puso un poquito de agua con la bentonita o arcilla y cambiaba plantain, arcilla, plantain, arcilla. ¿Y qué más? Colloidal silver, he also used plata colloidal. That is, well, plantain also is antibacterial, antimicrobial. All these things, these agents were helping to draw out and also to prevent or take care of some infection. You'll say that safely. Entonces, la plata colloidal también ayuda con la bacteria que puede estar en la, ¿cómo es? ¿Picadilla?
Picadura.
Picadura. I imagine something of a circus. Piccadilly's picadura. Why do I have that one's I have to engrave that one. And so he used these three things, rotating them, and eventually it went away, which las picaduras, there we go, de araña reclusa can be really bad. The recluse spider bites, they can actually eat away flesh. How would you say that? They could...
se comen la piel o desgastan la piel.
Desgastan la piel. Entonces, con estas tres cosas, plantain, bentonite clay, arcilla de bentonita, colloidal silver, plata colloidal, yo creo que eran 2 veces que tuvo picadura de araña reclusa y salvó. No podemos decir curar, pero ayudó bastante.
Wow. Sí, qué chévere. Y es importante decir, it's important to say que si te pica algún animal venenoso, go to emergency. Ve a la emergencia si te pica algún animal venenoso, pero on the way, en camino al hospital, grab some plantain, ponle Plantago.
Exactly. One of our favorite teachers at the Institute, Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, una de nuestras maestras favoritas del Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism se llama Lise Wolf, y tiene una historia. She has a story about a friend who got bitten by a bunch of wasps. Si tiene una amiga si fue picada por varias avispas. ¿Es cierto? Ok, bueno. Y en el camino al hospital cogieron bastante, o antes de ir al hospital, cogieron bastante Plantago, y en el camino puso el Plantago por todo el cuerpo cuando en las picaduras. Y cuando llegaron, so when they got to the hospital, so on their way, right before they got into the vehicle, they grabbed a bunch of plantain, mashed it up. They might have bit it and stuff, and put it on her, and on the way to the hospital. And her friend said when they got to the hospital, she's like, yeah, I don't need to go into the hospital. So it was her friend's choice, but quite an amazing story. Entonces, cuando llegaron al hospital, su amiga dijo, ya está todo bien, yo no necesito ir al hospital más. Vamos a casa.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Y sí, saca todo. Si miras la planta, if you look at the plant, tiene raíces como muy, que parecen muy panditas o que no van al fondo, pero de alguna manera la planta puede sacar eso. De alguna manera la planta tiene una habilidad or has an ability to pull out. Y esta planta la vas a ver, you're going to see this plant por todos lados. Like once you see it, it's everywhere. And it grows out of, the crack of the sidewalk, or, where it's pure concrete, you'll see plantain growing in the tiniest crack. Vas a ver, así estés en la ciudad rodeado de concreto, vas a ver que sale por las grietas más chiquitas y eso muestra, ajá, eso muestra que tiene esa habilidad para sacar y saca todo. Another story is it's, as I mentioned, good for ear congestion and the ear canals. And for pulling out, of course. Entonces, my son had a cold, tenía gripa, mi hijo, y parece, de repente, I realized that he might have an ear infection, una infección del oído, porque le hablaba y no me escuchaba. He couldn't hear me. I was just speaking normally, and I was like, what's going on? I think you're going deaf. And sure enough, tengo un aceite de Plantago, que es literalmente hojas de Plantago, so leaves, plantain leaves, in olive oil. Lo dejas reposar como por 6 semanas, o un mes por lo menos. You just let it sit for 6 weeks, 1 month at least, and then you strain, se cuela, and un poco de aceite con el dedo, así, en las 2 orejas, y ya, y a la hora, an hour later, after putting it on his ears, from one of the ears, there was a little ball, una bolita de cera, a little ball of wax.
Oh.
But it was like, it was little, but it was big.
Big enough to block his hearing, obviously.
Yeah. Entonces, sí, plantain.
Wow, increíble. Cuando yo era niña, yo tuve muchas infecciones de la oreja. Y yo prefería esto, el aceite.
Sí.
Que no duele. Porque yo me recuerdo que necesitaba unas gotas de una medicina, no sé, pero dolía mucho.
Ouch.
So when I was a kid, I got a lot of ear infections, and I had to take these drops, of some kind of medicine, and it was always cold, and it would just like hurt. And I could just imagine that this plantain oil that you're talking about was no problem to give to your son. I bet you either did it yourself, or he'd be like, no, I want to do it. And they get to do it themselves too. Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like anything. No se siente como nada.
Excelente. And then afterwards he could hear you just fine.
Yep. Yeah.
That's great. So the ears, what's interesting, on a note about ears and language, there is in English, we have the inner ear and outer ear, but there's actually different words in Spanish for inner ear and outer ear. And I have to remember which one is it?
Yeah. So oreja is ear, and oído is the inner ear.
That's right.
A good way to remember is oír, or to hear, is, yeah, I guess that's maybe not the best way to remember, but yeah, oír is to hear, but yeah, escuchar is like to listen.
Yes. I remember them in Portuguese, but it doesn't always translate literally. But maybe no olvidar el oído. Olvidar, don't forget it's oído.
Oído. Pero it's interesting porque the other way around, al revés, like, entonces, in English, toes is the fingers of your foot.
Right.
Pero en español, yo no conozco una palabra para toes, entonces es dedos del pie, like fingers of the feet.
That is so funny. It is like first time hearing that. So they're all fingers or toes. So in English we have fingers and we have toes, but they're the same word in various languages. That is really funny.
Yeah.
So you actually had a kind of a 2-in-1 story. Su historia era dos remedios en una historia. Es una cosa es infección, es dolor o tres, y un objeto que estaba en el oído. Oír? Sí.
Oído, ajá, ajá.
And so you had like 3-in-1 story. There was an infection, there was pain, and there was an object in the ear, so it could pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
Get extra points for that one, I think.
Yeah, plantain is amazing. It is.
Have you used it? Lise says it's great for teething. For los bebés, ¿cómo se dice cuando there's teething?
Sí, cuando están saliendo los dientes.
¿Y has usado plantain por esto?
Sí, el aceite es lo más fácil. It's the easiest, of course, because it's a baby. Entonces, aceite de plantago y en las encías y ayuda con el dolor. Mi hija, que recientemente le estaban saliendo dientes, my daughter was she was teething recently, and you know, it was incredible because just dabbing it, she'd been crying the whole day, and we put some plantain oil on it, when within 5 minutes she was calm.
Wow.
And, yeah.
That's good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That helps. That's amazing. She speaks cat only. Well, perfect. That was as a story that Lise gives in a number of her talks about teething, sinus infections. Es también sinusitis en español.
Mm-hmm.
Alergias, otitis, ear problems. Just generally, even just like mucusy. Have you used it also? Because like babies, they have such tiny nostrils. Have you used it like when they're all congested?
Mm-hmm. See, I've used it with congestion for sure, like the oil usually, or here and on the nose. Pero para bebés, for babies, what I find the most useful when they have a cold is a bath. Because babies have very thin skin, very permeable skin, so the herbs can really get in, but it's more gentle than ingesting them directly. Entonces los bebés tienen piel muy delgada, muy permeable, entonces un baño es muy buena idea para uso medicinal para los bebés. And yeah, in the bath, I usually put plantain for sure. And then other plants like yarrow, which is Achillea millefolium, or milenrama in Spanish, like colloquial, meaning mil and rama is like the stalk, mil means 1,000, so 1,000-leaved. And I put alcampaign, and I put usually elderflower, and I make a big bath, like 5 liters, and then I strain it, and then I put that hot bath in the bath water. Entonces hago una olla grande de 5 litros con esas plantas, y después de colarlo lo echo en el baño. And of course you test the temperature to make sure it's not too hot, but you want it to be warm. And then just bathe the baby, and that will open the pores, It will help release mucus, and especially if they have fever as well, it's good because it helps to release the heat. And yeah, you'll see amazing results with baths. Yeah, that's like the number one thing I do for especially babies.
Mm-hmm. Does that help? Because you know, in my mind is always like, what is the dose? You know, me imagino que ayuda porque también con los bebés siempre piensan cuánto de esto yo doy de ese tintura o lo que sea.
Entonces, por eso los baños o baths son muy fáciles, porque it's just absorbing through their skin. Solo las propiedades son absorbidas por la piel, pero no es tan invasivo como una tintura o un té. Y claro, en el baño de pronto toman un poquito, pero no están, digamos, consumiendo. Entonces es muy fácil. Pero, por ejemplo, para bebés, el otro día que mi hija tenía gripa, hizo varios baños. My daughter had a flu, and after 3 nights of baths, there was improvement. 3 noches de baños, hubo mejoramiento, but it was still lingering and not fully going away. Entonces, I made her a tincture, pero diluted. Entonces, take como 6 gotas de tintura en 125 mililitros de agua. Entonces, eso es 6 drops of tincture in 125 mils of water. That is more than 250. It's a 250 dilution. So you dilute it by more than 250 times. So it's very, very minimal. And then from that dilution, I would use like 2 drops at a time on a teaspoon. So it's very minimal. Like basically you're not really getting any of the alcohol, which is the most it's the most difficult for the child to process. Entonces, sí, no reciben el alcohol, que para los niños es muy difícil de procesar.
Y es muy pequeñita, tiene unos 11 meses.
Sí, 11 meses.
She's very little. She's just 11 months old. So, and of course, all of this is not medical advice. We're just sharing experiences, and we all wish you well, but definitely check with your primary care provider, your licensed health practitioner for all of this. But these are remedies that have been used for years and years by people all around the world. Entonces es muy importante que esta información no es información medical, es solamente información por los años, por las abuelas y las generaciones, ¿sí? De uso, y esperamos que puedan ayudar a ustedes también, pero usan con cariño. Always use them with much care, and get to know an herbalist in your area. Take some classes online. This is just to get you started in learning what's around you.
If you're new to herbalism and herbs, the best way to learn is to try them on yourself. That's the number one place. El mejor lugar para aprender es con uno mismo, para las hierbas y cualquier otra cosa.
Exactamente, yo concordo. And I just noticed my name is still host. I forgot to change that. We could go on for hours about this one herb. Esta única hierba puede discutir por días, no solamente horas. Pero antes de ir, quiero preguntar si tienes unas otras historias, unas otras dicas muy importantes, any other tips or stories that you find are really important that you want to share before we say goodbye for today?
Sí, una interesante que se mencionó antes, el plantar fasciitis o fascitis plantar, was Liz Wolfe del Instituto de Matthew Wood, la ha usado para plantar fasciitis. Entonces, si tienes plantar fasciitis en la noche, pones una hoja de Llanten, de Plantago, en cada pie, en la planta, in the sole of the foot. You put a leaf of plantain in each foot under the sock. And then you go to bed. Te vas a dormir y ayuda con el dolor.
Y es casi la única cosa, la misma cosa que aconteció también.
¿Aconsejó?
No, pasó. En portugués es acontecer, pero yo creo que es pasar en español. Lo que pasó con mi tío es que machucó, o no sé lo que pasó con su pie, pero fuimos a la casa de mi tío y tía, so we went to my aunt and uncle's house to visit them, and something happened to his foot. I don't even remember what happened, pero we recommended, ¿qué es recommend?
Recomendar.
Recomendar, claro, tan fácil, las palabras tan fáciles, yo me olvido, pero recomendó poner Plantago así, simplemente así, y después de unos 3, 4 días ya era mejor, ya estaba mejor. And so there's just such simple things, you know, like putting the leaf in your foot, and you might even have like you might have stepped on something and it helps. I mean, Elise has amazing stories. I'll show you here while I'm talking at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. Well, first of all, we have a few videos on the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism YouTube page. Here's one. I'll put these in the show notes. Entonces, tenemos muchos videos de nuestros herbalistas del Instituto Matthew Wood y en YouTube y también en la propia instituto aquí. So we have videos on YouTube at the Matthew Institute of Herbalism and at the Institute proper. And what was I talking about? Oh, Lisa's stories, sus historias de Liz Wolfe. Dijo que tiene varias historias. These are all in English, so just a heads up. Todas las clases todavía están en inglés, pero un día, maybe one day, we will have them in Spanish as well. Van a estar en español también. Pero Liz Wolfe tiene tantas historias. Plant herbs, there we go. Walks. Trying to do too many things at once. I'll leave a link also for this free preview. It is in English, and she does have some great stories. And I think it's the spring section right here. We have Plantain. But one of her stories, una de sus historias, una de las maestras, Liz Wolfe, del Instituto Matthew Wood. Yo voy a hablar un poquito más despacio para mí misma. Ella, su curso de plant walks es de cada estación, pero no solamente primavera, verano, otoño, son las épocas entre las estaciones también. Y tiene tantas historias, y una de las historias que dijo que one of her stories, Liz has tons of stories in her plant walks, and I'm going to stop paging through this so I can pay attention to what I'm talking about. It's a little more challenging in two languages. It's worth it. It's full of stories. It's so much fun, and like I was saying, it's only in English at this point, but well worth it. And one of the stories that she told is she had a friend, and you know how sometimes friends you just respond quickly to, you know, in a text or something like that. Entonces Liz tuvo una amiga que estaba mandando un mensaje por el teléfono. ¿Es mensaje o texto?
Mensaje.
Y como a veces cuando está discutiendo por texto, por mensaje con sus amigas, es muy corto, ¿sí? Es muy rápido. And so her friend was like, I have something in my nose and I need help getting it out, something simple like that. Yo tengo algo en mi nariz y necesito ayuda para quitarlo. And so she's like, oh, just put plantain on your nose. Entonces solamente tienes que poner plantain. She uses oil usually too, un aceite. But what her friend didn't say is that it was like a splinter. ¿Cómo se dice splinter again?
Astilla.
Astilla, gracias. Era un tipo astilla, algo, oh no, era un pequeñito pelito en el nariz. Y su amiga, so it was a teeny tiny hair, a nose hair. And so her friend was like, oh, okay, I put the oil on my nose. And so she put it on the outside. Entonces su amiga, la amiga de Liz, no dijo que era es pelito, ¿sí?
Ajá.
Pero porque yo imagino un perrito. Pero un pelito, pero puso el aceite, how would you say on the outside? Afuera de la nariz en vez de por dentro, ¿sí? Entonces lo que pasó, so what happens is she put the oil on the outside, the little hair came through the nose, and then nostril to the outside. Entonces lo que pasó es que el pelito pasó por la nariz por fuera. And so just a little detail, you want to put it on the side where you want it to come out because it will amazingly pull something all the way through. Entonces notas que tienes que poner el aceite o cualquier forma que estás usando plantain, pones en el lado que quieres que salgas. ¿Sí?
Sí.
¿Está cierto? Okay, bueno. So that's her classes are full of amazing stories like that.
Yeah, amazing. Plus, I think she does over 100 different plants in the plant walks. So yeah, there's, aside from plantain, entonces muchas plantas.
Plantas. So there are many stories. My husband right now has an herbalist recommended that he take plantain tea to help heal a hole in his large intestine. And so that's been going well, as far as we can tell. He's had a bout with diverticulitis. Entonces mi marido tuvo un caso de diverticulitis. Imagino. Entonces tiene no es, what would be a hole?
Hueco.
Hueco, gracias. Pequeño, no es muy grande, pero no necesito un hueco muy grande para causar problemas, ¿sí? Entonces, uno de los herbalistas del Instituto Matthew Wood recomendó un cha de plantain para ayudar los lados del hueco. ¿Cómo ibas a explicar?
Cerrarse o pegarse.
Sí, cerrar o pegar probablemente es una palabra muy buena por esto, porque como la palabra sacar o tirar es una energía, ¿sí? Entonces, para placar, ¿dijo placar?
Pegar.
Pegar, sí. Es una energía similar. ¿Sí? That's another use. So I think I said that all in Spanish. My husband has had a bout with diverticulitis, has a little hole in his large intestines. And so that's not a great thing to have a little hole, even a little hole in your large intestine. So one of the herbalists that we work with at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism recommended just taking a plantain tea. And it seems like that and many other things have been helping to bring those sides of that hole together and to in our observation heal that as well. So there's again, test it on yourselves. This is not medical advice, but there's some pretty amazing things that we have seen and heard plantain do.
And it sounds it sounds magical, to be honest, when you're like, oh yeah, a leaf can pull out a splinter, but try it. You'll see it's you'll have a splinter in there for days, and you'll pick at it with tweezers, and you won't be able to get it out. You put some plantain on it and it'll come right out.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So I think that those were the main stories that I wanted to share. And I'm so grateful that you had those stories about your little ones to share. I know that's so helpful to so many. Like I said before, I don't wish that you have the occurrences, that you, for those stories to happen, pero muchas gracias por las historias con tus bebés. And thank you, all of you, for being here. Absolutely put your comments, questions. We love hearing from you in the comment section, especially what the heck is plantain called in your area? We'd love to hear from you.
Sí, gracias a todos por estar acá y pues hasta la próxima. Nos veremos acá otra vez.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.